So meanwhile, I would like to first introduce you with the first panelist, Oleksandr. Oleksandr is an artist from Ukraine, now very based in Europe, but also traveling between Ukraine and Europe. Oleksandr was in residency we have collaborated with him with 2 projects with Augmented Europe last year, together with where he showed his production in Meet, the digital art center in Milan. And also this year in September, we were hosting him in Latvia and RIXC residency, where he showed the exhibition, which he will also introduce now. So it was all about hidden invasion. And this is very amazing projects because we hear a lot about war in Ukraine, but we don't hear a lot about life in Ukraine. We also don't hear much about the art in Ukraine, not at all, what we could say. But actually the art is still happening. And not only art, but also extremely amazing and innovative technological projects. So I think drone flying, I think you are really the experts. I mean, all the cartography, also what Eric was showing. So this is a huge scale what they really do. And also ecological projects because of the case of this Dnieper dam, which was destroyed and which is changing completely now ecosystem. So this is also the case which I wanted to present here because we had a wonderful presentation by Svitlana, architect from Ukraine. And Alex has also made a short video presentation, including here. And also Alex is one of the members of Fotinus group, so which is a Fotinus studio, new media artists in Ukraine. And I would like more give word to you.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm new media artist from Ukraine and member of the Fotinus studio, where most of the members currently on the front line. And we were dealing with new media arts in Ukraine as a Fotinus studio. It's like around 10 years. I dealing with them like for around 5. And currently most of them is on the front line, just living in the trenches 24/7. And we are fighting already not just with Russians, but also with North Korea. That is also a bigger deal now. But and today I'm gonna say about my interaction with Dnieper River and the small story of the project and how I was dealing with it and digging into the topic of hidden invasion through researching the Dnieper River, the biggest and one of the really interesting entities that I found in the environmental research in Ukraine. So the name of the research and name of the project that was presented together with RIXC as a part of Audi program in Milan in Midspace was also hidden invasion. And I will start from the terms that I found in ecology, which is like hidden invasion could kind of refer to invasive species that I found correlated to my last year's research in case of invasion, in different many layers, because we invading our environments very aggressively, invasion of like in political, social ways. So I found these terms that you see here quite interesting. So like these terms of ecological disturbance and invasive species management, it is like about preventing the invasion in its early beginning stage. That is, I was tried to realize, is it really possible in a stage of invasion in Ukraine, of invasion of our ecological species that we have. And I found Dnieper River as a topic of the research. That is like, for me, also became a very symbolic, a symbol of protection, of fight for surveillance that all Ukrainians have now. So here you could see that it's really one of the biggest rivers in Europe, and it's also named as one of the most artificial rivers through the way how it was invaded for hundreds of years by humanity. In this research, I want to say thanks to Roskid Group, which is like ecological and environmental researchers based in Kyiv now, but it's collaboration between Netherlands and Ukraine. And to my friend Svitlana USYCHENKO, who helped me a lot with their research, that they made and still making about the Dnieper River. So she's gonna introduce it through this video. I wanna give you a chance to dive into Dnieper River research. What is it about and what the problematics we have with it? So shortly, she will introduce it in this video. That was a part of the opening of my exhibition at RIXC just last month, where she did this presentation with Antoine, who is also a member of her collective, that they're now making this research currently in Ukraine, trying to implement this in parts of the Dnieper River in cities, like as a research that I want to physically implement right now.
First of all, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work about the Dnieper River. We hope that this presentation will extend your understanding of the issues and the context that Oleksandr addressed in his artistic work. We are here together with Antoine, and we are presenting on behalf of Roskvit, Urban Coalition for Ukraine. It is a coalition of over 80 professionals from Ukraine and beyond who unite to create knowledge and methodologies for rebuilding Ukraine's urban and rural areas and infrastructure. So this project was made in cooperation with Greenpeace. As you might know, Greenpeace is an independent global campaigning network working in Ukraine to advance green recovery. So how we worked in general, we conducted our research and the creation of this Dnieper River Integrated Vision together with local authorities. We also cooperated with grassroots initiatives. We took plenty of interviews with different people to understand what do they think about the Dnieper River. And we also talked to the state authorities and to the water agency of Ukraine. So we packed all this research, all this collected information into the book, which is available online. And we try to share this knowledge, try to disseminate this research within campaigns and exhibitions. And one of them is taking place in Kyiv now. And yeah, we are also glad to share it here with you. The research itself covers the Dnieper River past and present. So we try to collect the existing research and documents in one place, and we also worked on the integrated vision for the Dnieper River future. So why we work on it? We understand that Ukraine is facing many challenges provoked by war. The response, the solution for these challenges and for these problems, it should be evidence-based, and it should be also participative. We started to bring together ecologists, urban planners, policymakers, energy experts, and citizens who aspire to collaboratively shape the future of the Dnieper River and the future of Ukraine in general. I will tell a little bit about the research context, then Antoine will share the integrated visions themselves, and then we will have some time for the Q&A. I'm just sharing a few spreadsheets from the book, maybe to encourage you to take a look later, but shortly to give the understanding like what we were looking at in this book. So the Dnieper River is the main artery of Ukraine. You can see on this map that it goes from the northern part of Ukraine to the south, and it goes to the Black Sea, and the area of the Dnieper River basin takes a significant part of the area of Ukraine. Dnieper River is also a crucial ecological corridor. Almost the whole water surface of the Dnieper River is under the Emerald Network protection, and there are also a lot of nature reserve parks along the Dnieper River. Then it is a water supplier for agriculture. It is the water supplier for industries. It is a part of the energy production system. The biggest power plants in Ukraine, hydropower plants in Ukraine, they're located on the Dnieper River. Then it is a recreational area, urban beaches, regional landscape parks, they are also located along the Dnieper River. And it is a crucial part of cultural identity. It is present in Ukrainian cultural and artistic works pretty often, and it is also a crucial landmarks in urban environment. So the main question is how we can integrate all these layers when we take some crucial decision for the future of the river, because usually these topics they are discussed separately. However, they are pretty much interconnected, and it's very important to think about them in an integrated way. So just an example of the questions that we usually pose in our research. So for example, where the urbanization is threatful for the environment, which hromadas and cities are the most dependent on the Dnipro River, and for example, what caused the main pollution and how it can be mitigated. So these kind of questions are present in our research, and in this way we can change perspectives while we think about the river. So for example, in the first map here you can see the administrative borders, and you can see that the Dnieper River goes, it starts in Russia, then it goes through Belarus, and then it crosses Ukraine. But if we look at the Dnieper River without the administrative borders, we can see on the satellite image that it is an uninterrupted ecosystem, and it forms this like beautiful of the tree, and that's why we also talk about the one water approach in our research. We raised this question of the water governance without the borders. So we can go further and look again, zoom a little bit to this part of the Dnieper River in Ukraine. And on this schema, you can see 6 hydropower plants that were constructed in the 20th century in the Soviet Ukraine. And actually, when we think about the river in between these hydropower plants, we can understand that the natural flow doesn't work there anymore. So the river between these hydropower plants, even academically, it's not called the river, it is the cascade of water reservoirs that are pretty much controlled by people, and the water exchange is pretty much artificial there. So if we think about this cascade of reservoirs and about the Dnieper River basin in the relation to the ongoing war, we can see that there is a lot of potential damage for the ecosystems, and these red dots represent the damage, and the black dots represent the potential impacts on the ecosystem. We should keep in mind that an ecosystem is not just a number of living organisms of some area, it is a system of connections. As Ukrainian ecologist Oleksandr Vasiliuk said, we can assume that if there is some impact in some part of the Dnieper River, for example, we can see this southern part of the Dnieper River with many recorded war damage, then it will affect some other parts of the ecosystem, and it's all interconnected. So here, unfortunately, we already have some of these impacts and some of the consequences. Here you can see the photo of Kherson city, which was flooded after the explosion of Kakhovka power plant in the June of 2023. So after this disaster, when Russian troops exploded the Kakhovka power plant, 16,000 people were in the disaster zone, but also the environment was highly damaged. Let's look at this map. So this is the former Kakhovka reservoir, and the hydropower plant was located here. So in fact, all this water from a reservoir went downstreams, and it highly damaged the ecosystem of this area. It highly damaged the Kherson floodplains. It also impacted the Black Sea, according to Ukrainian ecologists. And we understand that not only households and not only the ecosystem was impacted, there is also the economic factor, because all this area, all this region was very much connected to the agricultural activities. So all these yellow areas are agricultural crops, and many cities were like established because of this agricultural activities in the Soviet Union, and then in the period of Soviet Union and Soviet Ukraine. When the water went down, all these irrigation channels, they collapsed. So the area was left without the water supply for the basic needs, but also without the water supply for agriculture. And to conclude, we understand that the decision making for such complex situation, for such complex problems, it shouldn't be only economically driven or politically driven. It should be integrated. It should address also the social aspects, the ecological issues, and so on and so forth. So now I will.
So yes, this is part of Svitlana's talk that I'm really happy she did months ago. Also, like, I advise you to, if you're interested in such a research, just scan please the QR code, and then you could download the whole book, the whole research, which is like more than 500 pages. It's like quite rare that this kind of deep and huge research could be free available on the website of ROSQUIT. And in general, you could see all other projects of ROSQUIT. And yeah, so please do it. Like in the end, I could also bring this QR code back. So the project that I made with a collaboration of RIXC, with the support of RIXC as a part of ALGE program, was named Hidden Invasion, where we had like hundreds and hundreds of talks and sessions with Svitlana and ROSQUIT group about how I could help with my knowledge and media and kind of like digital instruments that I was had a feeling since the beginning of Invasion that it's extremely useless, in a way that what I could really do practically, not in this artistic way, but like really help, because when you see death every day in your feet, in your life, and then like they said that to implement this solution that they are written in a book with all of the amount of information that they couldn't process by themselves, they proposed me to help them in a way of like processing the data, because it's my field, and interpreting the data into living digital structure systems that you could communicate with. So quickly pass through the process. So yeah, here's like a bit of an images from the exhibition. It was like idea was to implement such a complicated structures through very simple digital work, which could be implemented in a portable VR headset that is like your project needs to be small, simple, and available to everybody everywhere. I found some symbolics in the Dnieper River through researching, through digging into the book and information, that for me it became a new hope. Like the Dnieper as a symbol of a new hope, that even if we are as Ukrainians, who's like amount of us is less and less every day, we will not survive. But the Dnieper as a symbol that compiling all of the history and culture will survive, even if we will not. Symbol of life, defense, and future. It says important things. Also, I realized that for me, for Ukrainians, it's very important to find symbols of life, defense, and future. We don't have that much of them. So like, if I could create such a symbol for myself, for people around me, to motivate, to cultivate, to still fight, to still live under the bombings, and even not only Ukrainians, but like just people around me in general, because it could be a beautiful symbol of life. So the things that drives me through reading their research and book, it's like the way how Dnipro recreated itself, becoming a new system in just like 3 months or something after the power plants was destroyed and the area was totally dried. It's recovered itself, making like swamps and small water wetlands all around, to creating a new environment with totally new species that was very unpredictable for all of the researchers who was like following the Dnieper River for years, for decades. And it's like this unpredictable dynamic environment that we have now in Ukraine, that nobody could predict what's going to happen, whereas new technologies working with big data could be helpful in case of creating like a prototypes with whom you could communicate. and then improve and then implement into the real life. It's like something that we discussed with Roskut, how we could work together further. This is a map also, which is very lucky that Roskut found the map of Dnieper River, that the state of it, which was like 300 or 400 years ago, when it was like a Cossacks times, our time, which is also a symbol of fight. We were fighting Russian Empire for having our independency, but they totally then make us slaves for a while. But this period where the Dnieper River was looked like amazingly beautiful, so now it's kind of like coming partially to that state, like so visually, it's reminds me and like Roskit when they found it about that state of the Dnieper. So I started to made my own research in the way of like collecting lots of satellite data of like Dnieper River, how it looks like at the different periods of life, of its life, to see how the behavior of rivers changed, to then interpret it into my digital medium. And then inspiration for me was digging into to find the right visual language, because it's always could be different, depends on the project. I found the process of compiling the geodata, like these data, geographic information systems, which is like start from raster data, which is like pixels, and then it's vector data. So like I took it as a two main elements of to construct my work. And another inspiration that is a quite huge inspiration in my work here, it's Paolo Padrocini's work, Lichenia. I really advise you to check it out. It's a very specific experience, one of the best works from Paolo, I think. Which is like also about ecosystems and complicity, but where you don't have that much information or text or whatever, you just feel it through visual, through sound, and visuals here was generated with AI. So like it's lots of interesting elements that I decided to talk into my visual research in the work. So yeah, I slice the layers, and each layer I interpret into this or raster shapes or vector lines or vector points data. And then I implement it into my digital simulative space, which is combined by this living lines, living points, and living shapes. And a bit into the technical moment of the work, because all of this needs to be packed in a very small system, like VR headsets, portable VR headsets, which is like, I wanted also to create a complex sound setup inside of it, because I found the metaphor of like each layer as a string, as a guitar string, because the most powerful medium to makes you feel something, it's music, it's sound, it's not visuals. And for me, for working with the synesthetic experiences for many, many years, I could know how to find this feeling of sound, find this understanding of colors through sound, or understanding of sounds through shapes. So I wanted to implement this way that you play with this, you interact with this environment as a like music instrument. So technically I used pure data, which is inside of my project, inside of Unity, that is packed into the VR headset. So like here is like, you could just see some elements that is a part of this pure data patch. Yeah, and then in the end, it's like different states of the music composition that you could achieve through communication with this system that I created. It could be harmony, it could be new state. That is like through unpredictable changes of the system, you could achieve new state of sound, or it could be total disbalance. And for me, strings of guitar, when you play it, you really hear when you over pressure or you're wrong with it. So it's like, for me, a good metaphor of like to feel when you're when you're out of balance in communication. That is important for me as for us to understand that we are invasive species to our surrounding. Yeah. So here, before introducing the next speech from Jade, APACK, I will just show quickly a small video of this work.
But at the same time, it is also a habitat in itself,
along the bumpy
home to
roads,
many species
the blue
that
acacias
also
sway
live
gently.
off it.
Swans rose
Understanding
from the
this
Dnipro by
we
day
believe,
and
is
settled
an
for the night
essential
among the
task in
thickets of
approaching
orchards
how
and
we
mills.
use and manage
I stood on the
water
banks of
resources in
childhood
general
and
the
gazed into that
Dnipro
night that
River
had cast
in
shadows on the edge of the horizon.
Historically,
The night is not blue nor pink.
engaged in
The night
water
is as
resource
black as the
management,
wax of a wound,
relying on water
seeping,
utilities
spilling,
engineers.
and spreading across the
However,
steppe.
growing challenges
Drumming
like
quiets
population
around,
growth,
and only
pollution,
the sky
and
remains,
climate change
and the
necessitate
grass
a
growing in
paradigm
the
shift
twilight,
toward more
and the whisper
integrated
of the
management.
mysterious primeval
This
forest.
one water principle is perhaps
one of
best
the
developed in the
willows,
report
standing on the
Planning
bank of
for
that
River
river,
Basins and
where
Water
the great
Resources
event of my life
by
took
William
place.
Kessenek,
The moon
Vicky
climbed
Elmer
to
and
its
Jennifer
peak,
Grafe
to its
from the
heart.
American Planning
There,
Association,
clinging to a
APA,
branch, gazed at the silvery
presented
seed at the
in
bottom of the
Environmental
water.
Sustainability Planning Guidelines
Fossil
for
Stus,
Building Back Better
winter
in
trees.
Ukraine.
Vasil
One
Stus was
Water
a dissident
views all
poet
water
and
within a
activist
watershed
who
as
died in a Soviet
interconnected,
labor camp.
advocating an
His poems
integrated
often
approach to
reflect
managing
profound
water
sadness
supply,
and the depth of his
wastewater,
suffering.
and stormwater.
Here is one of his
This
longer
paradigm
poems.
aims to replace
Winter
industrial
trees,
era
like a blank
siloed
sheet in the
systems
poet's hand.
with sustainable
trees
interconnected
wait for
strategies.
Winter
Benefits
trees,
include
like a blank sheet in
improved
the
resource
poet's hand.
sustainability,
The trees
conservation of ecosystems, and flood
Poet will
avoidance.
come and write on the blank sheet.
The interconnectedness of water
Trees
systems
will rest
is central to this approach,
Trees
emphasizing integrated management to prevent problems.
So yeah, I think because I feel that maybe we're out of time, and I forgot to mention that the voices, it's like poetries of Ukrainian poets that was repressed by Russia in different times that were talking about Dnipro very passionately, like talking about it, and also one water concept. So it's like idea of through all of these layers make from them a living system, a breathing creature. So yeah, and now I just want to pass the word to Jade, APACK, researcher, architect. Like she will introduce herself, but she has also influenced me in my work, in my process to be more careful with my research. And yeah, I will give a word to her.
Hey, so I'm Jade, APACK, I'm an architect from France. I think Alex and I found each other into the thing that we are both working on how to represent elements. For me, I call it phenomenon that shape spaces in a different way, of course, and how to work on the connection in between those elements. So I will be speaking about a research that I'm doing with Florian Touron, which is called Telluric clock. But to be very honest, I have the feeling that my internet jumps in the beginning of the conference. So maybe it's better if Alex put the videos that I record a few days before. If Alex, you can do it. Yeah, I think it would be more efficient. Thanks.
Okay, we will run the video.
Hi, my name is Jade, APACK. I'm an architect from France living in Paris, and I'm here to introduce you the project Telluric Clock, which is a research I'm doing with Florian Touron about how to map phenomena that shape spaces through the lens of time. So I will be speaking about this, introducing you to 4 different projects that I've done during the last 2-3 years. The first one is a project we did together with Florian. It was the one that was the big impulse to our research. We did it in Călăraș in Romania. It was a workshop with architecture students of 2 weeks, and we developed a methodology that with the students we tried to analyze 2 to 3 different spaces through the lens of time, and we tried to reproduce the time sequence of the places through performances and the video was taken from above with drones. So here you can see the markets of the city of Kalarathi. And we tried to reproduce the movement of the market, of the food, of the users, of the sailor, of the trucks, etc. And here is another places during the same place in Kalarashi, where it was a big introduction for us because we tried to analyze the spaces through the agent. At that time we called it agency that make the spaces. So like uses artificial environment, enough matter, her weather, and we wanted to describe them through already some characteristic like cyclic, linear, infinite, etc. We thought there was like something interesting in this, and we were like, okay, what if we try to develop a way of mapping things through this lens of how do we characterize the agency of the places through the lens of time. And then we had the opportunity to propose this during the Cartography Biennale in Lille last June. We did one day workshop together with some participants. We made a ballad all along the canal, and then together we thought about, okay, what is the affordances of these places, what is the agencies of this place that we could collect, and then how could we describe them through the length of time, through a unit of time scale. At the end, we made this sculpture, two-sided sculpture, with the name of the affordances. So it was like borders, all of the animals living there, also some vegetation, the municipality policies, etc. And then every color is describing like minutes, hour, week, months, etc. Like every unit of time that it has. So we can see how affordances are linked together through the length of time, and how long one affordancy appear in one place, and how it affects the other one. As a system of gears and pulley, we decided that we wanted to push it a bit forward to describe more like what the links in between affordances, etc. So I had another opportunity to work on temporalities in the workshop Common Water Body last September in Georgia. So it was one-wing workshop all along the river of Inguri River, which is a natural borders with the occupied territory of Georgia. So here you can see all along these rivers there is a very big phenomenon agency that shapes the spaces, like a hydro plant, reservoir. Also in the delta of this river there is like a city which is called Anaklia, which is like something quite extraordinary because they were supposed to build a deep sea port there, but never happened, so most of the buildings are abandoned. So there is also like a lot of things ongoing through the river. And together with the team of students that you can see on the left, we design a map through carpet that has been then exhibited in the Tbilisi Architecture Biennale, the one that you can see on the left. And this carpet, we decided to work on how to code it, how to legend it. So basically here the river is in white, and then on the right side, all of the green, it's like phenomenon that influence the river, and then on the left it's phenomenon that has been influenced by the river. So it could be like the dam, the borders, all of the resources, the like fish, sand machine in the dam, etc., like the architecture of the place. All of this phenomenon are influenced the river or are influenced by the river. And then we also worked on how those phenomena are linked to one to the other one, and we worked on how we connect them. So you can see in the legend, like if the phenomenon benefits from each other or not. So it was a first step of like, how do we code a connection in between phenomena that shape spaces. This is my personal plan, like how I want to now transform all of those data into installation. So you can see again like the Corey and Polay system. But in order to do it, I need to develop a specific codification. So the codification I started to work on is like, what is a phenomena? It's a fact or a set of a fact. That could be or movements, presence, extraordinary events, or a system of belief. So all of it shape spaces, and we can code them using, for example, colors. And then we need to decide which temporality are each of the phenomena. So the temporality is like the average duration of those phenomena. Is it like a short duration, medium duration, long duration? And then according of it, you could, for example, code through a system which uses size. I internationally decided that the the shorter phenomenon would be the bigger to see the impact on the impact of short phenomenon on very huge phenomenon. And then you could also code the phenomenon through the recurrence, which means like the repetition of the phenomena through time. It's periodicity. Is it like a one-off phenomenon? Is it a daily phenomenon? Is it something that appears every year because of seasonal cycle? Or others? So those are like some of them that we could use. And then the last step would be, how do we connect them? What are the dependencies in between those phenomena? What are phenomena is consequences, or what phenomena is cause of another one? And then how could we describe the connection? Like both phenomena benefits from each other, then it's mutualism. If just one phenomena benefits without any impact on the second one, then it would be commensalism. And then if one phenomena benefits and cause damage on the second one, then it would be paritative. So once again, we could color the Corey to make the legend. So using this system, we could reach a system of mapping phenomena through time that would be more into sculpture or installation. This is a try. This is an installation I made in the residence that I'm now in Paris, and it's actually a workshop I will be doing tomorrow. So I don't know. I will be trying the codification of the system of the map to see if it works, and if it doesn't work, I will obviously change it and try to make it better. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you
For your attention.
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I just have two kind of rather technical questions about like some details of the works that you've mentioned. So first one, I was just curious, you mentioned that your creative practice, how you were mapping things in Unity, was based on synesthetic experiences. And I'm just curious if that's something of your own synesthetic experiences, or is it just like a cross-modal kind of approach of stimulating multiple senses at the same time? So is it like based on some personal embodied synesthetic experiences?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's based on a personal experience of like how our piece perceiving colors or sounds and how I am interpreting them and in between each others. So like for me, this is like the meaning of synesthetic experience, when you could feel the hear the colors. So it's like it was partially the idea like that all of these maps that I interpreted into the Unity experience, you could hear them. You could hear them very precisely by having a very complicated sound system, which is why I put the pure data audio patch for each of the elements in the system to give it like a personality, a characteristic of each shape, each layer, each point, each line through the research. So this is it.
So it's semantic.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another rather technical question. You've mentioned pure data in Unity. So is it like data used, or are you using pure data of environment for?
Yeah, pure data is like application.
Yeah. Okay. So then I'm curious how you connected pure data to Unity. Was it like plug data or like outputting data out of pure data to receive in Unity?
No, it's like inside Unity. It's on GitHub is available patch of creator of Pure Data.
Okay.
Who made it like after his graduation from studies. So like it's available on GitHub. So I just used it.
I see. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, there are like just 2 comments or reminders, maybe of terminology as well. So I just wanted to say that we are talking here about, just to make it clear for those who are not so familiar with this terms, also what Alex actually was using. So it's in a case of a war. Yeah, so it's not just a war where there are 2 conflicting sides. So he was using always this term full-scale invasion or invasion. So that's why this word. So just to make it clear, because this is not about 2 conflicting sides getting into the war. It's clearly about one-sided attack. Which is with the aim to make a genocide against the other countries. So that's why he's using always invasion instead of war.
Yeah, and term invasive species is really, I found it very common in a way of like Russia was hiddenly invade us for, yes. So it's like this process was very invisible for us, like for me. It's why I'm guilty that I'm part of the things that happening in my countries that I couldn't really do anything with like things that happening. We could prevent it. It's like about this preventing methods of invasive species. Russia, it's invasive species. It's like the biggest invasive species that I could say.
Yes, and we use here in Latvian history, we use a term occupation. You can go to visit the museum if you want to understand that situation in 1939 was very different than maybe we just maybe have missed in Europe. So it was not also again just the war. That before was invasion, occupation here in Latvia. So this is one thing, and another is just a reminder that we all are in a hybrid war, especially through these our beautiful digital technologies. And as soon as there is Ukrainian speakers, always be careful about the Zoom. So that's why this time we were very careful. We sent through just to Eventbrite registered people the Zoom link directly to their emails. Because we experienced this hacking already twice. One was when Alex presented in Digital Art Center in Meet Milan, and we had from 5 countries participants joining, 150 people online. And it was also through the meeting room. So that's why they couldn't hack the screen. So they only through the chat, they really hacked everything through the chat only. Yeah. So we had to restart the computer, send new link. But in this presentation, which happened months ago, I just 5 minutes before the presentation started, I decided, let's try. I posted the link publicly on RIXC.org website, and 20 minutes later, in the middle of all this presentation by Svitlana, so we already, all screen was hacked by hardcore pornography by Russian hackers. So it was just like once, and this is over. You cannot do anything. So there's no way to stop it. You just have to quickly lock this computer. So
so be careful with your Russians.
So if you have on a panel, so Zoom, MS Teams is different. So it's more protection, but Zoom is very easy to hack. It's really literally 20 minutes and then it's already done. Yeah, so that's about this hybrid situation. Yeah, and with this Dnieper project, what I wanted to say, I think that's also important because this is also actually a part of a larger landscape in Europe. So what is happening at the same time, it seems like the architects are working with Dnieper, but I was also asking them the question, but how you go there? Of course, they cannot go. It's too close to front line. So it's they are using drones to follow the ecosystem changes, and also they develop the ideas that so how to deal with it. So maybe ECOS will allow. It's really no point anymore to make these 20th centuries hydropower plants, which were done by big USSR with the very different ideas, how to power large areas. So does it make sense to build them back? Leave it for the nature as it's happening now, or try to find more contemporary solutions. So this was my my intention to bring and start also this first panel with this Ukrainian research about the ecological disasters and really like how they are thinking. I would say they are quite innovative. I think they are quite in advance actually about how to regenerate all these they disastered green areas.
Yeah, and in this case, just few words that, as rivers and different environmental structures in Ukraine become more flexible and unpredictably evaluated, it's like the society too. Like we have, for example, term like drone in every kitchen. It's like when every Ukrainian started to know how to make the drone in their kitchen because you need to shoot the Russian shaheds because they could, and you could shoot shaheds with a drone. So you could make drones to send it to the front line. And in this case, it's why with Roskilde, we're speaking about complex and very mobile systems of sensorics, of like different sensors, devices that could measure what is going on this part of Dnieper River, which is on the border of which is now front line. So like now one of the bank is related to Ukraine and another bank is related to Russians. So it's like how to measure this, how to realize if it's becoming more dangerous, because Russians now want to poison the Dnipro, which starts in Russia and go through Belarus, and they want to poison it through there, and then it's going to the Black Sea. So, and as we know, Russians will not stop in any case in between nothing. So nothing could stop them to do this. So yeah, it's why we were speaking about making the smart devices to like drones that could deliver other devices. It's like already happening on frontline. Like my collective is making very complex structures that is communicating between themselves. So we know how to. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, while Mónica is also artist of the exhibition. So you can see in a National Library. And Mónica RIKIČ her practice is focusing on creative coding and electronics, combining them with non-digital objects to create interactive projects, robotic installations, and handcrafted electronic devices. So this was her installation, which she will also introduce. Her research behind it.
Hello, everybody. I speak a lot, so I make my notes. So I'm going to try and keep it simple. So thank you very much for inviting me here. It's my first time in Riga. I'm very happy to be here exhibiting. I don't know if you've all seen the baby robots, let's call them that way, that are called Hypertèlia. So my goal in these 15 minutes, which seems very short from the beginning, is to explain you a little bit where do they come from, like the idea, no, and the type of research that I do. Like as a general practice, as in my general practice, like a general note, I just want to say that my three main interests I do in my artistic practice are playful arts. Okay, that's why like the words have like this playful approach. Handmade electronics, that it's like the way I kind of like put everything. This means that everything you can see that I do, it's mostly made by me, like handcraft or machine handcraft by me, because I use obviously digital fabrication tools. And I have a very big interest in objects, of course, and how objects affect the way we perceive the world and how we can, make a contribution or be producers of the world by making our own objects. So although the work that we have in this, that I have in this exhibition, it's called Hyperbole, this talk is called Hipertèlia, because this is where it all started, like a couple of years ago or around 3 years ago already, because we're in the end of the year. I started, I had to do my first solo exhibition, and I was thinking about, okay, what it is that I have been doing for the past years, like conceptually. Also, I needed to think it more about conceptually, and this is a topic we've been sharing with my colleagues like lately, because it was in a visual arts space which I don't know how the context is here, but in Spain, it's not that usual that you see technological art in a visual arts context. You know, we have like still have this barrier, even in Barcelona, you know, that you can think that it's very open, it's very wide. We are kind of sometimes just dragged to be like in music festivals or like some different spaces. So for me, it was like, okay, you know, how can I shape it, you know, in a language that people that don't necessarily are related to this language, this type of aesthetic language, can understand what I want to say with my practice. And while doing my research, I discovered this concept, which is written in Catalan, okay, in the first word, which means Hipertèlia. Hipertèlia, which means hypertele in English. Seems like a little bit weird, sorry for me to translate it, but basically what it means is the excessive development of an organ, which causes it to lose its function and even hinders the function of others. It's an overdevelopment. Actually, I must say that this definition comes from biology, okay? You can find like other definitions from hypertèlia or hypertele, but if you want to have something in mind, like it's like a mammoth, you know, or those big teeth that animals have, that they stop being functional and then they even like don't allow the animal to do like eat or do other functions. So starting from this point, I wanted to translate this concept to technology and putting technology in seeing technology as something that has become like an hypertelic organ and that has grown beyond its practicity. Also, I must say before continue that I don't know if you have this feeling, but in technology language, everything seems to go so fast, no? Like everything, like the idea we had about AI, when I started thinking about this, that was like 3 years ago, it's not the same that we have of AI, like right in the moment, and the interests, and especially in the artistic realm are not the same. So back then, the idea of Hypertèlia started from the intention of proposing alternative approaches to the futures of artificial intelligence from artistic and critical thinking, and that's the point I wanted to go, unlike other proposals, especially back then, that were trying to think about, well, they were generally focused on the creative possibilities of machines, you know, like how can we like create art with AI. This project, actually, what they wanted to do, or this research, actually, what I wanted to do was questioning and researching and experimenting on the characteristic that artificial cognitive systems, because I used to refuse to call it AI, must have in order to be considering existing and sentient organisms. So it's not, so I actually kind of defend with the proposal that we can only talk about any kind of creativity in machines after this process of technical system autonomy, although that would be like another full talk, another full topic to talk in another moment. So the main question that I have behind this artistic research process is that if we are capable of accepting inorganic system as an independent and active part of shaping the world, and also what conditions should these systems fulfill in order to do so. This question should not be viewed as a comparison of how human or how natural an artificial cognitive system should be, but rather it should be understood as a path that wants to lead to the acceptance of non-conscious artificial cognitive systems as part of the common existence of the world. Obviously, this is very based on post-humanistic and Henry Hale's inspiration. And also, I would like to remember again that I was trying to focus all my practice for this solo exhibition in a realm where people are maybe not used that much about talking about these topics. At a time where the distinction between nature and culture is not enough, the multi-species coexistence not only refers only to the relationship between the human and the non-human, but it also should include the technical objects as part of the pack. So, as I also said when I was presenting my project yesterday, apart from questioning my projects and starting from Hipertèlia and continuing and finishing with Hyperbole, apart from questioning the technological resources required to develop artificial existence, or what people commonly like to say consciousness, which I don't really think it will ever happen, the proposal wants to argue that the possibilities of existence are also based, or I must say, informally, mainly based on a question of philosophical attribution. What do I mean with this? Is, I don't know, I always feel surprised when people feel, for example, uncanny about, well, when I do my research about objects, I always feel like, and I always try to compare this when people think that a robot, or an AI system feels like a little bit weird, a little bit uncanny, like we project our fears or our desires into those systems. But for example, if we look at any other culture, for example, I take in my own culture, the Spanish culture, and we see how people feel towards religious I don't know, like the virgins and everything in the south of Spain. I don't know if you've seen these images when we have like the Easter processions, and people like really feel a lot about those objects also, but this time they are like they don't move. I actually think that we are having the same projection towards artificial systems, and it's a philosophical and cultural attribution we give to those objects that has always been through the years in our cultures. The difference, though, that I feel that this technological and AI and like super resource needed systems we have now is that apparently, and that also would be another discussion, okay, but just take it in a general sense, like apparently the significance or the meaning that the cultural, religious and objects or like non-technological objects have had, it has been won through the years, it has been like a mutual and consent, it has been like a consent that has also been merging and being infected and influenced by other cultures, but it's a thing that we as societies, as humans in contact, in friction, in bodies, have been kind of agreeing, by consents. The speed of technology, and the speed of all these imaginaries that don't really belong to us have been like pushed to us very like strongly, and we feel uncomfortable because I would like to defend that we feel uncomfortable because we haven't actually consensed it in different cultures. So it's like a very massive culture that it's been imposed to ourselves. This AI, for example, or artificial intelligence, artificial cognitive systems, sorry, has, in this sense, has traditionally always been presented as a simulation of the human mind, of course. But the thing that I'm interested in is that it has been defined through very specific philosophical assumptions that claim to be universal. Those are rationalism, dualism, formalism, and mechanicism. These assumptions actually create a very specific perspective from which the problem of how to model a mind has been approached. With this research, I would like to defend that we must find partnerships with alternative philosophical traditions in order to articulate alternatives to the dominant artificial intelligence computational metaphor. Based on this, the research methodology I used for doing the exhibition that I will show you a video just now was focused on suggesting a number of conditions that algorithmic systems must fill in order to be considered cognitive based on alternative philosophical proposals. The main goal was to create a practical symbiosis between technoscience and philosophy through art and by creating a sensitive ecosystem from handcraft electronics, which is actually my practice. The devices, not only these ones, but the devices are generally made, are situated away from the need of any functionality or productivity, and they only serve the purpose of the free experimentation on non-conscious cognition. So as you can see an example of what I'm talking about, I'm just going to play a video of what the exhibition was. Thank you. So, well, as you can see, it was also very special to put all those things inside a church and make it make it like a sensitive space. So just moving a little bit, well, moving away from that exhibition and understanding a little bit the framework where hyperbole takes place. Yeah, I wish you could all experience the the robots like this, to be honest. Like, that's my future project, like somewhere where I can make like 20 or something, and you can just lay down with them and really feel the embodied cognition, the sensitive feeling. So, well, maybe before explaining a little bit more of the project, I would also after you've seen like some of the works I've done, maybe I should like just explain very quickly that okay. Oh, then I won't explain that. Then we can then we can talk about that in the coffee if you want, or if you have some questions. So I'm just going to explain very quickly about the hyperbole. So hyperbole, that it's actually the one that you can see there. It's a mechanical artistic installation and an algorithmic experiment dedicated to design and develop an alternative cognitive machine in the sense that I've been explaining before, built from handcraft electronics. So this machine intentionally diverges from the predominant use of mainstream artificial intelligence techniques such as machine learning. Instead, it's focused more on emerging systems based in generative art and other artistic practices, let's say, and especially the beginning of life art, if you can think of Carl Sims and others. It aspires to be recognized by the audience. Yeah, I know. Wait a minute. It's okay. Yeah, I'll be quick. By the audience as cognities, emphasizing its operational characteristics and the code structure, which is actually also shown next to the work that you can see on the screen. So the installation explores So the installation explores cognitive processing machines, but based in two main phases. The first one is the algorithmic computation, which involves the structure and the execution of the code, and the physical computation, which pertains to how the structure and the execution of that code is manifested in the machine physical composition and movements. As I just said, in the installation, both the code and the machine are visible to the audience, and the main goal of the proposal, apart from generating these feelings with the audience, is to challenge the predominant role of spoken and written language in cognitive expression of human-machine communication. That's why it has a particular emphasis on embodied expression through the handcraft robotics configuration, which is very, very, very simple. And the artistic strategy that me and my collaborator Gemma did for this, because she's a psychologist specialized in models of AI for care and assistive robots, actually, is to create different mechanical personalities that will allow the devices to communicate and assume different roles that actually can seem very abstract with these boxes, but actually they do have their own personalities. And the ultimate goal is to evoke perceptions of existence and sensation or sensitivity in these mechanical organisms that are like pretty simple, and also, of course, emerging behaviors in between the group. And that's it, because I'm running out of time. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Hi. Have you thought about, particularly for these kind of robotic devices, using various kinds of materials? So because those would kind of very differently will relate to our senses, like if they're wet or fluffy or harder or softer. So can you?
Yeah, I've been using very, very different materials also. Like I have I like the way, so I come a lot from the maker community and the hacker community. So I really like to work with recycled materials or craft materials that you can find anywhere. And that's actually like a very, it's a not only aesthetical, but kind of a political decision in a way. So I like that some of them, like, well, I collaborate obviously a lot with people from fashion design, like lately, because I'm interested in fabrics, because it takes you to another imaginary, that which is not the the technological one maybe, but I've also worked with silicon, for example. I've been working with soft robotics for a bit, which is like super expensive. I don't really recommend that because silicon is like super expensive. That's what I say, like working with handcraft and daily materials, it's a political decision apart from economical. And but it really, I've been trying like different materials, and I've been seeing how people like react to them. I don't know if that's answering your question, but mainly I go for soft and not shiny. Please.
Okay, one more question. My question would be, have you ever exhibited it in this way, like you said, like so that you can experience them more?
No, actually, I haven't yet. I want to, but that's why yesterday I was taking them out of the cocoon and offering them to people, which actually I take this chance to tell you that if you have guide tours, you are welcome to do that if you want. Yeah, I'm not, yeah. It's like when I did the other exhibition, like in the church, the people were very scared about people touching it because they had problems. And it's like, I think it's part of the thing, or it's part of the show. Like if people touch it, if they vandalize it, then no, but originally they were thought for falling in the floor. That's why they tried to escape. They were thought to fall in the floor, and then I created a mechanism that pulls them up. I actually have it, but I mean, I don't know if you work with handmade electronics, but every single motor you put, it's a complication and a headache. So I'm just trying to, I'm feeling them like this, and then we'll see how they evolve.
Okay. No, thank you. They are really great. We love them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn KIRSCHNER is a designer and researcher with a background in architecture. Her work explores the growing entanglements of ecologies and machines in the context of the climate crisis. Carolyn is a lecturer in design at Goldsmiths University of London. So that would be for really short, so that we can have more questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn KIRSCHNER. I'm a designer and researcher with a background in architecture, and I'm also a lecturer at Goldsmiths University in London. I'll be presenting to you an excerpt from my ongoing project NOPOL, which is all about the role of remote sensing technologies in the Arctic Ocean in the context of the climate crisis. Something I'm really interested in is the fact that machine sensors and other technologies are playing an increasingly central role in shaping our interactions with planetary ecologies, especially in a remote region like the Arctic Ocean, which few of us will ever encounter with our own eyes. These networked instruments, which are used to map, model, and measure the landscape, have a huge degree of influence in shaping our collective imaginations of the far north. I've been thinking about what it means to encounter a landscape through machine eyes or machine senses, and how these more than human perspectives might shape and potentially reconfigure our understandings of remote landscapes and ecologies. Although these growing networks of instruments and sensors are, of course, a global phenomenon, nowhere has their presence been supercharged quite like it has in the Arctic Ocean. From satellites in space tracking icebergs and wildlife, to air guns tracing undersea topographies, you have biochemical sensors floating in the drift ice used to track ocean currents, pollution, and water temperatures, weather balloons and radar stations like IceCat collecting atmospheric data, and hydrophones listening for underwater sounds. Even narwhals have been recruited as remote sensors. They're fitted with radio transmitters to collect data from beneath the ice sheets in areas that are otherwise impossible for researchers to access. Part of the reason for this growing network of machine senses is the fact that, to this day, the Arctic remains one of the least understood and least accessible regions on the planet. It's an icy ocean of crushing pack ice, which is obscured in complete darkness for much of the year. The closest inhabitants are indigenous communities living along its shorelines. And on the ocean itself, besides the occasional research vessel and tourist cruise ship, there's very little human presence. So we rely on remote sensing instruments to study and monitor the far north. But it's the effects of climate change that have really turned the world's eyes north in recent years and have spurred this wiring up of the landscape. On one hand are climate scientists and environmentalists who are racing to study and protect the rapidly changing polar ecologies, especially since warming temperatures in the Arctic are not only detrimental locally, but threaten to amplify global warming worldwide. At the same time, you have oil and gas industries and nation states relying on remote sensing technologies to stake their influence over the region, as the region's rapidly melting sea ice promises access to new shipping routes and untapped oil and gas reserves below the Arctic seabed. Turns out around 30% of the world's untapped oil and gas is suspected to lie below the Arctic seabed. So remote sensing technologies are not only deployed for scientific pursuits, but have become important geopolitical tools as well. They hold multiple conflicting roles, often rolled into a single piece of hardware. The digital fragments of the landscape that they transmit across the globe are used to steer everything from climate policy to international trade to resource extraction. Remote sensing technologies are even being used to negotiate an ongoing territorial dispute over the Arctic seabed. It's a dispute that's been ongoing since the early 2000s between the Arctic nations, which includes Russia, Norway, Denmark, Canada, and the US, with each nation scrambling to claim portions of the seabed surrounding the North Pole, at the center of the map on the screen here, since that would give these nations rights to the oil and gas reserves below. What's unusual about this dispute is that it's not being resolved through shows of military force, but rather through geological data collected by remote sensing instruments. According to the frameworks set out by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, effectively, if a nation can prove that the seabed they're trying to claim is a natural continuation of their continental shelf, then that portion of seabed is rightfully theirs. Unsurprisingly, however, there are discrepancies now between each nation's models of the Arctic Ocean, as each nation attempts to manipulate the terrain in their favour to make their territorial claim more viable. All of that to say, the digital maps, models and images of the region which are currently in circulation are not neutral, objective representations of the landscape. They are inherently incomplete and inevitably skewed by the agendas and biases of those producing them, which at the moment is largely in the hands of extractive industries and nation states, giving these players an outsized degree of influence over what we see and sense of the far north. With my project Nordpol, I've been interested in exploring these questions of power, authorship and bias in the construction of remote sensing imagery, and I've been speculating on ways in which the perceptive and imaginative capacities of machines could disrupt and expand prevailing environmental discourse. Beyond their role as scientific instruments, focusing on their potential as design tools, as image-making and world-building tools. This has produced a range of different outcomes over the years, but since we don't have a lot of time today, I'll briefly share just one small strand of the project. Initially, I wanted to better understand how these machines actually perceive their surroundings and what could be learned from the alien ecological perspectives of these instruments. To the eyes of a satellite, for example, the Arctic Ocean is essentially a sea of pixels, and through variations in shape and colour of these pixels are they able to automatically detect icebergs or wildlife or ocean currents. It's quite a blurry way of seeing the world. Satellites, for example, are also used to monitor shipping routes in the Arctic, but they can only see ships if they're larger than 20 pixels. Smaller ships are misidentified as waves, and on the flip side, strange wave formations are sometimes mistaken for ships. Polar bears, too, are confusing for satellites, specifically infrared satellites which are used for wildlife observation. Apparently, the bear's dense fur coat absorbs portions of the electromagnetic spectrum, which can make them invisible to satellite eyes and impossible to detect. As these kinds of technologies play an increasingly central role in how we understand and engage with distant ecologies, these machine glitches are really interesting to me, thinking about how they might impact the way we understand species or suggest new kinds of ecological logics. Perhaps satellite vision is actually more closely aligned to non-Western worldviews, as it often defies rigid scientific categories and allows for a kind of fluidity in delineating boundaries between human, animal, landscape, ocean, and geology. A provocation that resulted from this research was this rug of what a polar bear looks like to the eyes of a satellite, Maybe the polar bear's shadow is the only part of the animal that can be detected by machine eyes because of the temperature differential created on the ground. The rug kind of borrows from the familiar form of a hunting trophy, you know, these animal fur rugs people have in their living rooms, but a far more slippery version of the animal, drawing from the worlds of machine vision. It's made from a semi-transparent urethane, kind of a rubbery material, made to look as if it itself is a shadow on the ground. It's in these kinds of gaps and glitches and the extended realms of machine cognition where I think alternative experimental approaches to working with machine senses and environmental data can be found, which foreground the collective intelligence of geosensing infrastructures and set out expanded possibilities for symbiosis between instrument, human and non-human worlds in the far north. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for your video. It was very lovely to see. I have a question. Why did you make the rug as a physical object instead of making an object that would just make a shadow?
That's a question I've not been asked before. I guess so much of these images and guess like the material record of the Arctic at the moment is purely digital. It's something we kind of encounter online. And maybe it was wanting to make something feel tangible that, you know, it's the way these machines see landscapes or see animals or see ecologies, it does have tangible effects on kind of planetary systems, I guess, on how we how we encounter the region, what we do in the region, who gets access to the resources. Like there are really tangible consequences from these maybe quite immaterial encounters between machines and the Arctic. And so I think, yeah, I guess I wanted to also make to bring some of these things from those really slippery machine worlds into something that is tangible and real and physical and put it into a space, in a space that, you know, in a way that maybe creates a connection or some kind of tangible presence of this this remote activity. I don't know if that helps to answer it, but that's maybe a first attempt.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a next steps in plan to make a full living room of weird shadows?
It's a project I've been working on for a while, and so there have been different outcomes. I've kind of showed a tiny part of it today. There are also digital outcomes and writing and that kind of thing. The next step for me is going to the Arctic Circle for the first time next year. So far, it's research I've done remotely, kind of through open source data that I can access online. So I'm looking forward to going and actually meeting with scientists who are working with some of this kind of data. But yeah, it's a mix of different outcomes, and I guess all of the outcomes I see more as a way of doing research, kind of using design as a way of doing research and exploring some of these questions as opposed to the outcomes maybe being the most important thing to me, at least. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Which is interesting that you answered the question. You answered now the question which I just wanted to ask you, and this was about you're working with remote sensing tools. Yeah, how important you think is for yourself to go to Arctics and also to talk to the scientists. So maybe just elaborate on the same, which you already briefly mentioned.
Yeah, sure. I mean, initially there was something interesting to me about, because I'm doing a project about how we engage with this region remotely. I felt it was kind of fitting to be working in that way and only have access to digital fragments of this region and kind of try and piece together from those fragments a more complete picture, maybe. Part of it was cost as well. It's a really expensive place to get to. Then the pandemic happened. I started working on this project around 2019, I think. And then the pandemic happened, and obviously no travel was possible. So it's kind of a project that's been carrying on a little bit in the background, but it feels like an important next step maybe to get a new perspective on some of the research and some of the work by actually going to the place and meeting some of the people on the ground, and also just experiencing the landscape and the ecologies with a really different kind of proximity.
Yeah, because working together, also I have been working with remote sensing scientists, and their excitement about these technologies is they are saying landscape researchers. So they are saying, oh, we don't have to go to forest anymore so often because we have all these remote tools. That's why I'm asking. So how is it, and actually how this experience being embedded physically into these environments? Yeah. So how important is it in your research?
Yeah. And I think there's also, I mean, exactly, I guess some of the criticisms or maybe critique of remote sensing technologies is just how abstract and incomplete they are. And there's maybe, I think there's so much trust being put into scientific models of the climate or of landscapes, and inevitably they are flawed. They're digitally trying to replicate these incredibly complex systems, incredibly interconnected systems, where it's impossible to translate one-to-one into kind of digital form. And so any scientist or any kind of oil and gas industry or any government research agency that's using these instruments, anyone will be making decisions of what data is worth collecting, what data to leave out, what parts of the region are worth showing, and so, yeah, I think that's maybe another reason it is also so important to engage with the real place, because of the understanding that these technologies and kind of computational representations are so imperfect. But then at the same time, I guess within that imperfection is also where really interesting things can be discovered, and maybe there's a chance for new kinds of ecological perspectives or like ways of learning from how these machines understand the landscape that are beyond where science or kind of human understandings are at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and now we invite presenter Mona HEDAYATI. This is the last presentation of this panel. So Mona is an artist researcher engaged in dual PhD in interdisciplinary humanities and artistic research in Canada and Belgium. She has an MFA in digital media and a master research in social, political art and design, working across computational arts, sensory anthropology, and science technology studies. Mona's work has been disseminated internationally across artistic and scientific institutions, giving the hybrid nature of her work. Okay, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk about basically this new register of imaginaries and materialities that come about with the advent of technological sensing superimposed on top of human sensing, and the kind of hybridities, the kind of negotiations that need to happen across these two registers, the natural and the synthetic sensing, to come up with this third level of sensing that I would like to call it, which is kind of a consolidation or a hybridity that happens across these two levels. That's always already dynamic because of the nature of agencies that occur and kind of gets renegotiated between humans and machines. So I will talk about these briefly, and very, very briefly at the end, I will touch upon a project of mine which deals with these kind of phenomena that I just discussed, but I won't be able to get into the details in this very short time frame. So effectively, I will talk about tensions, as I said, in humans and machines configurations, and think about them in part of a particular way as expansions and extensions of human nervous system towards what I call, after many other theorists, a planetary nervous system that kind of brings layers and levels of sensory machines to make sense of the world. And so I think about them in two particular ways. One, augmentations as a way of thinking that it expands the possibilities to interact with the world through new pathways of sensing. And the other one as amputations, as a kind of a disruption that happens to embodied and situated interactions with the world. and a way of confusing our sensory perception. So it basically has kind of a pharmacon, if you like, effect that has both of these embedded into it. And so then I follow with this quote by Lucy Suchman from Human Machine Reconfigurations. The person figured here is not an autonomous rational actor, but an unfolding, shifting biography of culturally and materially specific experiences, relations, and possibilities inflected by each next encounter, including the most normative and familiar in uniquely particular ways. And so in this quote, I think about this possibility of kind of humans and machines coming together, but without any prefixed and pre-coded roles, but a kind of convergence that's always already dynamic. And this, of course, reflects into this idea of interaction, which Lucy Suchman also talks about, which, of course, famously is associated with Karen Barad, of thinking interactions are beyond interaction as fixities, in a sense that interactions kind of and sort of define not only actors within particular situations, but their agencies. And so at every situation, these agencies are then negotiated in particular ways. And so I see that in this loop of sensing and affecting that happens between sensory systems and the way they leave imprints on the world and the kind of feedback loop that happens. And so, of course, this is classically associated also these ideas with actor network theory and the kind of these ways of thinking around actors that come together in particular situations as actants or actors, whichever way you want to call them, that again don't have a predefined actions or predefined roles associated with them, but it is within the network that the roles are defined, and it's the dynamism of the network that defines these actions and actors. And so I have this funny kind of slide here that I came up with this term biosensibility to deal with this hybridity between biological organisms and their natural sensing system, and then synthetic sensing systems as those essentially amounting to these planetary nervous systems. And so this kind of shows that dynamism that I was just discussing. So curves and reverbs, a participatory biosensor performance is a kind of a performance in which I grapple with these ideas in a sense that I kind of assume that if the synthetic sensing is the kind that confuses, is the kind that then creates an extra layer that we need to grapple with, I kind of then translate these invisible sensing that constantly affect us into data representations of sound and image. And I just have audiences grapple with these sensory representations. And so here I would just very briefly show this diagram that happens between body as a biological system, sensors that collect sensory information from the body and their reflection into sound and image, which continues to affect the body. So essentially a feedback loop that constantly moves between the bio and synthetic sensibility. So audiences effectively see in the very beginning just very simple graph representation of the biosensor data, and then eventually they understand the operation. As they understand the operation of the system, they see much more complex versions of it. In this sense, what I call data responsive footages through sensors that collect data from the body. And so what happens is that the parameters of an already existing moving image is mapped into the sensory information collected from the body. So essentially you see the reflection of the natural sensing on top of a data representation. So it looks something like this. And with that, I will conclude and I will see you at the question and answer session. Thanks.
Hey, thank you for the video. I have a question. You use a lot of scientific tools. You said you are studying in multiple universities with a dual PhD. What field are you studying in, and how this approach to this quite data-driven, software-driven work, how does influence your artistic side?
Well, I'm doing really a kind of a hybrid work that really crosses a whole lot of disciplines. So it's really difficult to explain it in such a short time frame to give you an answer. But in my bio that Raza just read, it kind of touches upon the field that I work with. So it's mostly feminist STS. And then secondarily, I do ethnography, mostly sensory ethnography. And then, of course, my medium is computation arts. So I work across computation arts with a whole lot of other tools. And then, so that, I mean, my artistic practice has always been sort of a mishmash between a whole lot of other stuff. And then I don't feel that doing a double degree has anything against that in that sense. It's just that it informs kind of these loops of that in Canadian education system, it's called research creation, which means loops of research and making that kind of are interconnected as feedback loops. So you do some research and it feeds into what you make, and what you make feeds back into your research. And so you're constantly within this loop of research and creation. Yeah.
Thank you. And I also find it is very interesting that you are trying to explore natural and artificial. However, can you a little bit more explain what you exactly mean with synthetic sensing?
Well, I call all these networks of sensors as synthetic sensing. And so if we think of this kind of idea that sensors collect information from the real world, and then we at the end of the day, kind of have to deal with some sort of a representation that comes from these large pools of data that we get out of sensors. So then it's kind of like we think of, okay, then there is quantification of some sort of information from the real world. In this case, it's body using biosensors. And then we systematically log them, datafy them in essence. And then that goes through some processing. These days, typically using machine learning, and then the result of that processing then kind of gets interfaced somewhere else, and we make meaning out of them by either classifying them or patterning them. So I call this whole loop, synthetic sensing. I mean, after Benjamin Bratton, who calls AI also synthetic intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much. Now
Thanks
we can.
so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.